Dozens of Russian soldiers were eliminated in a massive missile strike early on New Year's Day in Ukraine's Donetsk region, Moscow said, marking what could be one of the deadliest attacks on Russian forces since the start of the invasion. As reported by the Washington Post, Ukraine's military command said that at least 400 soldiers were eliminated in the strike in Makiivka, a city in eastern Ukraine under Russian occupation, and that at least 300 soldiers were injured. Russia's defense ministry put the death toll at 63. In a statement posted to Telegram, the Department of Strategic Communications of the Armed Forces of Ukraine provided little detail, suggesting sarcastically that the incident was the result of the careless handling of heating devices, neglect of security measures. Moscow authorities, pro-Kremlin war bloggers, and Telegram channels acknowledged the attack but provided inconclusive and contradictory death tolls. Russia's defense ministry blamed Ukraine for the strike and said that the Ukrainian military had fired 4 long-range missiles from US-provided artillery rocket systems, HIMARS, 2 of which were shot down. The US-based Institute for the Study of War said the defense ministry in Moscow was probably trying to deflect the blame for the security lapse onto Russia's proxy authorities in Donetsk. Local security officials told TASS news agency that the cause of the strike was that Ukrainian forces had been able to detect the use of Russian mobile phones by servicemen arriving in the building. Daniel Bezanov, a senior Moscow-backed official for the region, wrote on Telegram that just after midnight on New Year's Day, a Ukrainian missile had struck a vocational school in Makiivka that housed soldiers. A massive blow was dealt to the vocational school from American MLRS HIMARS, Bezanov wrote. The incident has revitalized Russian criticism of the country's commanders, with high-profile commentators pointing to it as the latest example of the military leadership's ineptitude. The incident in Makiivka marks a rare case of Russia officially confirming substantial losses. Last May, according to Ukraine's military command and Western intelligence, almost an entire Russian battalion and dozens of military vehicles were wiped out by Ukrainian artillery, while attempting to cross a pontoon bridge on the Donetsk River, in eastern Ukraine. The attack on Makiivka also follows an uptick in reported attacks on targets deep inside Russia. Besides, Samuel Ramoni, an international relations specialist at the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom, said the latest attack by Kiev on Russian troops in Makiivka was done in retaliation for assaults on Ukraine. Ukraine was answering to the wave of missile and drone strikes that occurred in the capital against civilian infrastructure on either side of the new year, Ramoni told Al Jazeera. And Ukraine could have responded by striking Russian territory again like it did at Engels, or responded by striking targets inside Donbass like it has done repeatedly. Ramoni said that Makiivka is a stronghold for Russian conscripts and noted that, typically attacks of this nature in Popasna and other parts of the front line were targeting wider mercenaries. Ramoni told that it is unusual for Russia to admit to suffering casualties. When it does talk about casualties, it talks about them in broad, generic terms, like heavy losses. It doesn't go out into exact numbers. An admission to this level of casualties in either Syria or Ukraine is quite unique, he said. Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky said he had received intelligence reports suggesting that Moscow would launch the attacks using Iranian-made Shahd drones. It comes after Ukraine carried out a strike that it said killed hundreds of Russian soldiers in the Donetsk region. Speaking from Kiev in his nightly address, Zelensky said Russia planned to exhaust Ukraine with a prolonged wave of drone attacks. We must ensure, and we will do everything for this, that this goal of terrorists fails like all the others, he said. Now is the time when everyone involved in the protection of the sky should be especially attentive. Russian drone strikes on Ukraine appear to have increased in recent days, with Moscow launching attacks on cities and power stations across the country over the past 3 nights. correspondents say that as well as the strain on Ukraine's military, which has to track and intercept the drones, there is also an attritional impact on the civilian population, which lives with the uncertainty, fear, and disruption the attacks cause across the country. Russia has been targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure for several months, destroying power stations and plunging millions into darkness during the country's freezing winter. Zelensky said Ukrainian air defenses had already shot down over 80 Iranian-made drones in the opening days of 2023. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg urged members of NATO to stock up on weapons to supply Ukraine as attacks from Russia continue, according to reports. Reuters reported that the NATO chief called for allies to stock up just days after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky asked for weapons and defense systems to stand up to a Russian invasion. "I call on allies to do more," Stoltenberg said. "It is in all our security interests to make sure Ukraine prevails and Russian President Vladimir Putin does not win." He also asked Western allies to get Ukraine ammunition and spare parts for the systems already in place. Stoltenberg told DPA during the interview that the fastest way to peace in Ukraine was military support, Reuters reported. "We know that most wars end at the negotiating table, probably this war too, but we know that what Ukraine can achieve in these negotiations depends inextricably on the military situation," he said.